Donald Trump has decided to block Harvard University from admitting international students. Now, luckily for Harvard, a federal judge just overturned that ruling. But wait till you hear what he's accusing Harvard of doing. He is accusing them of collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party, I'm not joking, to promote anti-Semitism. Never forget, Harvard University, the same school that pressured Claudine Gay, the former president, to resign, which she did because of the campus protest at Harvard, then installed a pro-Israel president at Harvard University, who is currently the president of Harvard right now. Don't forget how Harvard caved to some of the demands of billionaire nut job Bill Ackman once the protest started. And out of all the universities, he is accusing them of collaborating with China to promote anti-Semitism. I wish I was joking, but I'm not. Let's get into it, folks.
We do have breaking news now. The Trump administration has just revoked Harvard University's ability to enroll any international students. The existing international students there have to transfer out, and no new ones can be accepted in.
This marks a sharp escalation in the ongoing battle between the White House and the nation's oldest university. CNN's Jeff Zeleny is at the White House. Jeff, tell us what's happening here.
Well, Brianna and Boris, there has been an ongoing fight between the White House and Harvard University over the curriculum, over the federal funding, and now over international students. As you said, this is a dramatic escalation. We are learning this announcement from the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Kristi Noem making the announcement this afternoon, essentially giving a warning to Harvard that they are no longer allowed to admit international students. So she writes this in part: they have lost their student and exchange visitor program certification as a result of their failure to adhere to the law, she says. Let this serve as a warning to all universities and academic institutions across the country. So let's break that down a touch. She's accusing them, Harvard University, of failing to adhere to the law. Of course, there were some rules essentially that were put out as a strings, if you will, on federal funding for what type of a curriculum universities could use, what type of DEI programs they couldn't have. Of course, this all stems from protests on college campuses. Harvard University is pushing back very hard at this. Just a statement coming out just a few moments ago. Harvard is saying that they will challenge this legally as well. And they go on to say this: the government's action is unlawful, Harvard says. We are fully committed to maintaining Harvard's ability to host international students and scholars who hail from more than 140 countries and enrich the university and this nation immeasurably. So how many students are we talking about here? Well, in this academic year alone, almost 30% of Harvard's student body were made up of international students.
Now, let me say something about this. Because during the pandemic, I did give a warning about this. At that time, I was working at Boston University, right? And I gave the warning that we should probably try to focus our efforts on recruiting more domestic students in these programs, right? I was shouted down by faculty. See, people forget, just because I was an academic advisor, you have to remember, at the universities, I was pretty much at the bottom of the totem pole when you add in the faculty, the deans, and the associate directors, the directors. Like, I was little me at the bottom of the totem pole. So sometimes I would have good ideas, but they weren't going to happen unless you went through this giant weave of people. There's a lot of bureaucracy at universities. But I gave that warning because when the pandemic happened and there were lockdowns, that started to have an impact on our enrollment. Because the reality is, some of the international students didn't feel comfortable paying all this money to attend a program that they couldn't even get here for. And honestly, I couldn't even blame them. It's like, why would you pay full price to attend a program that you can't even physically be here for? These schools are expensive. Harvard, BU, Boston College, et cetera. Like, why would they pay? And don't forget, they don't receive financial aid. They pay. Or if they're in a PhD program, they receive a stipend, they get a fellowship, right? But for the master's programs and for the undergraduate, they pay. Now, I made this alarm back then. And you see what is happening here with Harvard. It says that the international students make up 27.2% of the enrollment. It's probably even more at BU. What has happened is a lot of these universities have relied on international student admission because, like I just told you, they pay. The other problem that you run into with the PhD programs is that, unfortunately, when you're looking at the test scores and you're looking at the GPAs, when we compare applications, like when looking at domestic student applications and international student applications, the test scores are often lower on the domestic side. Now, that goes back to our public school system. This is all connected, I promise you. What we would notice is that, of course, a lot of the international students have higher math and science scores and GPAs. So a lot of these programs are competitive and they're looking for people who have great GMAT scores or GRE scores. They're looking for higher scores. And when it comes to STEM, particularly in the United States, we don't compare to Korea and China and their test score. They're way ahead of us with this. Now, I made the suggestion that these schools, you guys, we should start putting more attention and more focus on domestic students. I was basically told that they don't have the grades. They don't have the test scores. So what my thing was, look at what else they have. Look at the extracurricular activities. Did they have a part-time job? If you have a part-time job, chances are, yeah, your GPA may be a little bit lower. That doesn't mean they're not going to do well when they get here. But they didn't want to listen to me. That was during the pandemic when we were hurting for numbers. And now you see this. Let's go on a little bit more.
6,793, according to this year's academic record. So the government is saying that these students must transfer. We are told that they are likely to be able to transfer to another U.S. institution, not necessarily return to their home countries. But of course, this will be one of the many actions of this administration that will be challenged legally. But certainly, once again, a dramatic escalation from the U.S. government against Harvard. Boris and Brianna.
Certainly is, Jeff Zeleny. Thank you. And with us now to discuss is Ryan Enos, the professor of government at Harvard University. He's also a member of Harvard's chapter of the American Association of University Professors, which is currently suing the Trump administration. Professor, thank you for being with us. This decision that Harvard can no longer enroll foreign students and existing foreign students have to transfer or lose their legal status. What's your reaction to this?
I think it's awful and it's outrageous. It's another pattern of the Trump administration taking authoritarian actions. In the United States, the president does not have the power to punish people, target people for punishment because he doesn't like their politics. And he's targeting Harvard because he thinks he politically disagrees with them. It's a political vendetta. And he's doing this on the back of students who were admitted to Harvard from around the world for their merit, for things that they accomplished in life. And now he's trying to punish them, to hold them hostage, essentially to try to win what he considers to be this political fight with Harvard.
It's a losing situation. And the thing is this, and we've talked about this before, the reality is this is Donald Trump fighting against Harvard University because Harvard said, no, you're not going to come into our university and change our curriculum. Like they literally bent over backwards for the demands before Donald Trump got into office. They bent over backwards to the demands of Bill Ackman. Like this is the other crazy thing. Like they really did. They told Claudine Gay, listen, you probably need to resign. They bent over backwards for all of this, right? It's crazy to me. But even that's not enough. So now it's like, you got to get rid of the DEI courses. You got to get rid of the certain courses and classes that you have at the university. Donald Trump thinks he's king. The hell is this? So it's crazy. Remember what I told you about Project Esther? Project Esther, one of the things they mention is the education systems. They want to come in and change the curriculum at the schools. If they see something about in the history textbooks that they don't like, they want to come in and change it. Anything that will paint Israel in not a positive light. Now, again, none of this is America first. This is all Israel first. This really ain't about Harvard. This is about advancing the agenda of Israel. That's what this really is. We'll go on a little bit more. It's crazy to me.
That's what authoritarians do. It's not done by the rule of law.
Secretary Noem says the administration is holding Harvard accountable for fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party on its campus. What do you say to that? I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, I could shake my head all day against those things. I would ask them what violence they're pointing to, what anti-Semitism they're pointing to, what coordination with the Chinese Communist Party they're pointing to. These are outrageous statements. And I think it's become increasingly clear that the public doesn't believe this. The American public doesn't believe this. And they are leveling these outrageous claims to try to win this political battle. And in a certain respect, I think we see this pattern with them. It doesn't matter whether these accusations they are making are true. They're all a pretext for this trying to punish Harvard and punish other universities as a way to bring them under their control. And as I said earlier, that is what authoritarians do. It's not the way things should be done in the United States.
Some of this.
So it's really crazy and really bizarre because one of the things I want to point to as well, when we talk about like in enrollment and all of this stuff, it's like Donald Trump is basically trying to teach Harvard a lesson because they said, look, we gave in to all the other demands. And now you're trying to tell us that now we can't admit international students. You don't own Harvard University. What are you doing? Who do you think you are? And this is honestly like crazy. And now here's what I want to say. You don't have to like Harvard. I got many criticism about Harvard we've talked about on the show. You ain't got to be a fan of Harvard. You ain't got to like Harvard, but you better root for them this time around. Because here's the thing. If he can come in and do that to Harvard, he can do that to any other company. Now, I say company because people look at them as schools, but these universities are a business. They make money. They're all about that money, honey. He can do this to any other company and come in and say, you better do this or else. That is a problem. But fortunately, a federal judge rejected it. Thank goodness for the federal judge. I'm just telling you. So check this out. Judge blocks Trump's administration ban on Harvard accepting international students. Ivy League school filed suit accusing White House of unconstitutional retaliation for defying its demands. A federal judge on Friday blocked the government from revoking Harvard University's ability to enroll foreign students just hours after the elite college sued the Trump administration over its abrupt ban the day before on enrolling foreign students. U.S. District Judge Allison Burroughs in Boston issued a temporary restraining order late on Friday morning, freezing the policy that had been abruptly imposed on the university based in nearby Cambridge, Massachusetts. So at the same time, the Trump administration has accused Columbia University of violating civil rights laws. Oh, now we care about civil rights. You can't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. While overseas governments had expressed alarm at the administration's actions against Harvard as part of its latest assault on elite higher education in the United States. So yeah, thankfully, federal judge, struck that down. Like I said, you don't have to like Harvard. You can have many criticisms of Harvard. I've had criticisms of Harvard. They can be very hoity-toity and all that jazz. But think about it. If Harvard goes down with this particular issue, who goes down next? Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.